Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. For generations, this verse from the Tower of Babel narrative has stood as the ultimate symbol of human hubris, a defiant collective ambition daring to reach for the divine. It's universally presented as a clear moral lesson: pride goes before a fall. However, what if this widely accepted interpretation is missing a crucial piece of the puzzle? What if the actual origins and intent of this ancient story are far more complex, a commentary not merely on human arrogance, but on something far deeper than we've been led to believe? Is the Tower of Babel merely a cautionary tale of hubris, or does scholarship suggest a socio-political commentary at play? This video embarks on an academic investigation, promising to uncover the historical context and textual evidence that profoundly reframes this ancient narrative. We will explore how its origins challenge the conventional understanding, pushing us beyond a simple moral lesson. But to truly appreciate these layers, we must first establish the orthodox position, the interpretation most widely accepted for millennia. The conventional understanding posits the Tower of Babel as a straightforward moral allegory. It describes a unified humanity, empowered by a common language, embarking on a monumental project, a city and a tower whose top in the heavens symbolized an audacious reach for divine status. This collective ambition, interpreted as ultimate hubris, provoked a direct intervention from the divine. In response, their languages were confounded, their grand project abandoned, and humanity was scattered across the face of the earth. This narrative, therefore, serves as a powerful cautionary tale, warning against the perils of human pride and the folly of attempting to usurp the divine order. It establishes a baseline understanding of divine punishment for collective transgression. However, the deeper meanings behind this foundational story are only revealed by understanding the very specific historical and cultural landscape where such towering ambitions were not only possible, but deeply significant. To truly grasp the nuanced origins of this biblical narrative, we must first immerse ourselves in the vibrant, complex world of ancient Mesopotamia, specifically the city of Babylon. This colossal urban center, flourishing from the 2nd millennium BCE, was renowned for its monumental architectural ambitions. Dominating its skyline were the Ziggurats, towering step pyramid temple structures. These were not merely buildings, they were considered cosmic connectors, sacred mountains built by human hands to bridge the earthly realm with the divine, serving as dwelling places for the gods and administrative hubs. The most famous among them, the Etemenunki Ziggurat, dedicated to the god Marduk in Babylon, stood as a testament to this profound cultural ethos. Its immense scale and purpose, reaching with its top in the heavens, mirrors the biblical description almost exactly. This historical reality, however, profoundly shifts our understanding of the tower's builders, raising a critical question about their true intent. This profound historical context laid the groundwork for a critical academic shift, what we now call the Ziggurat hypothesis. It wasn't a sudden flash of insight, but a painstaking process of archaeological excavation and textual comparison. Scholars, sifting through ancient Mesopotamian tablets and architectural remains, began to see undeniable parallels. The biblical tower was no longer an abstract symbol of defiance. It was a direct, albeit reinterpreted, reference to these very real towering structures of Babylon. This discovery fundamentally reshapes our understanding of the entire story. It suggests the biblical authors were not inventing a fictional scenario, but rather engaging with a very tangible, well-understood architectural marvel of their time. The specific textual details chosen in Genesis 11, for instance, provide the first undeniable clue, offering a direct link to this ancient world. The Ziggurat hypothesis gains its textual corroboration directly from Genesis 11 itself. Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Genesis 11:3. This detail, seemingly innocuous, is a critical clue. Ancient Israelite construction primarily utilized quarried stone and lime mortar. However, in Mesopotamia, particularly in Babylon, stone was scarce. Builders relied heavily on sun-dried or kiln-fired bricks, often mortared with naturally occurring bitumen, a tar-like substance that provided excellent waterproofing. This isn't merely a stylistic choice by the biblical author. It's a precise, almost architectural blueprint, placing the narrative squarely within a Mesopotamian context. The choice of brick and bitumen instantly evokes the construction methods of monumental structures like ziggurats. Furthermore, the ambition to build a tower with its top in the heavens, Genesis 11:4, directly mirrors the theological purpose of Ziggurats, to create a terrestrial link to the celestial realm, not to physically invade it. This specific textual evidence forces us to reconsider the builder's true intentions. What then does scholarship tell us about the actual meaning and purpose of these immense structures from the perspective of those who built them? Academic consensus, drawing heavily from the seminal work of Assyriologists like Henri Frankfort, profoundly reframes the purpose of these Mesopotamian ziggurats. Far from monuments of defiance, these towering structures were sacred centers, built to honor deities and serve as earthly dwelling places for gods like Marduk. Their immense height was not an audacious attempt to physically reach heaven, but rather a symbolic gesture, a cosmic stairway connecting the human and divine realms, facilitating communication and worship. From the perspective of their builders, constructing a ziggurat was an act of profound piety, a way to ensure divine favor and cosmic order. This scholarly understanding directly contradicts the traditional narrative of human arrogance as the primary motivation. If these builders were driven by devotion, not hubris, then the biblical depiction of divine anger takes on an entirely new, perplexing dimension. This recontextualization forces us to consider the true nature of their sin beyond conventional hubris. If the builders of Babel were, from their own cultural perspective, acting out of profound piety and not defiant pride, then the orthodox narrative of divine punishment for human arrogance fundamentally collapses. This reevaluation forces us to confront a far more unsettling question. What precisely offended the divine? If it wasn't a simple case of individual hubris, what underlying motive could have provoked such a dramatic intervention, leading to the scattering of humanity and the confusion of tongues? The textual and archaeological evidence compels us to look beyond simplistic morality, suggesting a deeper, perhaps more politically charged commentary at play. It compels us to question the very essence of centralized power and forced unity. What if the confusion wasn't divine anger at pride, but a strategic reframing of imperial ambition? The plot thickens significantly when we uncover that this biblical account of linguistic division wasn't a standalone story, but part of a much older shared tradition in the ancient Near East. Scholarship reveals a striking parallel in the Sumerian epic, Enmerkar and the Lord of Arata, dating back to approximately 2000 BCE, centuries before the probable redaction of Genesis. This ancient text describes a primordial golden age when all of humanity spoke a single tongue. However, a deity, Enki, intervenes, confusing their languages and bringing an end to this linguistic unity. This pre-biblical account is crucial. It demonstrates that the motif of a divinely orchestrated confusion of tongues was already a circulating narrative template in the ancient Near East. The biblical authors, then, weren't inventing this concept, but adapting a familiar cultural motif. This pattern of repurposing existing narratives allowed them to embed their own distinct theological and socio-political messages. The real question becomes, what was the motive behind the Israelite scribes' specific adaptation of this widespread cultural pattern, particularly given their complex relationship with Babylon? This is where the exilic critique comes into sharp focus. Scholarship suggests that Judean scribes, experiencing the trauma of Babylonian exile in the 6th century BCE, repurposed this ancient motif with a profoundly new intent. Babylon, with its towering ziggurats and relentless imperial policies, was not just a city. It was the quintessential symbol of oppressive, homogenizing power. It sought to absorb diverse peoples, including the Judeans, into a single overarching culture, effectively erasing their distinct identities. The Tower of Babel narrative, then, transforms from a simple moral lesson into a sophisticated piece of political theology. It functions as a powerful critique of such unifying empires, where the divine intervention isn't merely punishing pride, but actively preserving human diversity against tyrannical assimilation. This reinterpretation, however, is not without its challengers. Many scholars and theologians still champion the story's enduring theological message, maintaining a different perspective on its core purpose. They argue that while the Mesopotamian context is invaluable for understanding the story's setting, the core message of Babel transcends its historical origins. For them, the narrative's enduring power lies in its universal commentary on humanity's inherent desire for self-glorification and an attempt to erase divine boundaries. From this perspective, regardless of how a ziggurat builder intended their actions, the biblical author framed it as an act of defiance against divine order. This theological emphasis prioritizes the narrative's moral lesson over its archaeological or socio-political underpinnings, viewing the story as a timeless warning against collective pride. Yet, understanding this story's political function within ancient Israel sheds even more light on its deliberate construction. Beyond theological debate, the Tower of Babel narrative was strategically adopted and shaped by Israelite scribes, particularly during the Exilic and post-Exilic periods. This wasn't merely ancient storytelling, it was a foundational act of cultural self-definition. The narrative provided a powerful origin myth for the diversity of nations, justifying Israel's own distinct cultural identity against the backdrop of powerful empires that sought to homogenize. Babylon, in this context, embodies the complex anti-hero, striving for an idealized unity and imposing order, yet paradoxically becoming a symbol of oppressive homogenization. Its ambition to gather all peoples under one banner, to build one city and one tower, was seen as a profound threat to the divinely sanctioned pluralism of human cultures. This deliberate framing by the scribes positioned the confusion of tongues not just as punishment for pride, but as a divine act preserving the very fabric of human distinctiveness. Understanding this political scaffolding is essential to synthesizing a truly comprehensive reevaluation of this pivotal biblical account. Bringing all these threads together, the Tower of Babel narrative, when viewed through an academic and skeptical lens, profoundly transcends its conventional role as a simple moral fable. We've traced its origins from Mesopotamian ziggurat construction, structures built for piety, not defiance, to its recontextualization during the Babylonian exile. This historical and textual journey reveals it as a sophisticated piece of ancient political theology. It emerges as a powerful commentary on the inherent dangers of monolithic power structures that seek to erase distinct cultural identities and force a singular vision upon diverse peoples. This reinterpretation suggests a profound divine preference for the preservation of human diversity over the coercive unity of empire. What if, paradoxically, the confusion of tongues wasn't solely a divine punishment, but a strategic act of preservation? Imagine a world where a single monolithic empire, unchecked by linguistic and cultural barriers, could relentlessly dominate all of humanity. From this perspective, the scattering becomes an act of divine mercy, actively fostering diversity and preventing an ultimate human tyranny. This reframes the divine intervention entirely, compelling us to consider the profound value of distinct identities. This reinterpretation, as we've explored, is a far cry from the simple moral tale, and its implications demand a comprehensive review of our findings. Our investigation into the Tower of Babel has taken us far beyond the simplistic cautionary tale of human hubris. We began with the traditional interpretation, only to uncover the profound influence of Mesopotamian ziggurat construction, revealing structures built for piety, not defiance. This historical context, coupled with insights from ancient Near Eastern linguistic motifs, allowed us to reframe the narrative through the lens of the exilic critique. What emerges is a powerful, nuanced commentary on the dangers of monolithic imperial power that seeks to homogenize diverse cultures. Scholarship suggests the divine intervention was not merely punishment, but a strategic act to preserve humanity's rich tapestry of identities. Yet, even with this deeper understanding, the most compelling ancient narratives often invite further inquiry. The true power of narratives like the Tower of Babel, then, rests not in definitive pronouncements, but in their capacity to provoke ceaseless inquiry. It leaves us contemplating the delicate balance between human aspiration for unity and the inherent value of diversity, a divine design or simply a historical necessity. This story refuses to settle, challenging us to ask how many other foundational texts, seemingly straightforward, conceal equally profound layers of meaning waiting to be unearthed by skeptical scholarship. This intellectual journey into the hidden depths of ancient stories is a path we encourage you to continue. This reevaluation of the Tower of Babel challenges us to look beyond simplistic interpretations. We invite you to engage with this perspective. How does this academic reframing of the story, from human arrogance to a commentary on empire and cultural diversity, impact your own understanding of ancient texts? Share your insights and questions in the comments below. Your contributions are invaluable to this ongoing scholarly conversation. If this journey into the hidden depths of ancient stories resonates, consider subscribing for more rigorous deconstructions. For those keen to delve deeper into the unexamined corners of biblical history, our next investigation awaits. Our exploration into the Tower of Babel has unearthed a complex tapestry of historical context and theological reinterpretation. This journey reminds us that many biblical narratives hold layers far beneath their surface, challenging our preconceived notions. If the deconstruction of foundational stories like Babel captivates your intellectual curiosity, then perhaps you're ready for another deep dive. On screen now, you'll find a link to our video, The Book of Enoch, a heretical apocrypha or a crucial missing link. Join us as we continue to meticulously examine other controversial texts, seeking the hidden origins and profound implications that redefine our understanding of the sacred. If the Tower of Babel isn't about human arrogance, but a complex narrative on empire and diversity, what other foundational biblical stories might we be completely misinterpreting? Answer in the comments. To keep unearthing these deep layers, subscribe and turn on notifications. Like this video if you're paying attention, and share it. Then explore our archive. We've barely scratched the surface of hidden truths.